They were supposed to be the pride of Texas Tech University. 27 top-performing students from different departments, chosen for a prestigious off-campus research retreat, a final academic expedition before their futures began. But in the spring of 2001, those 27 students boarded a charter bus and vanished somewhere between Lubbock and the rugged canyons of Palo Duro. No phone calls, no tire tracks, no bodies, nothing. Their disappearance became one of the darkest mysteries in Texas history, an eerie whisper shared in dorm rooms, late-night study sessions, and freshman orientation tours. For 20 years, the case remained a ghost story, a wound people stopped touching, until a wildfire in 2021 swept across a remote part of the Caprock region and exposed something no one was ever prepared to see. The rusted shell of a university shuttle bus, twisted and burned, hidden deep inside an abandoned storm drainage tunnel. And inside it, objects no one could explain, and remains that only answered half the questions. March 12, 2021. Firefighters from Amarillo were patrolling the aftermath of the wildfire, looking for hotspots. One of them, a veteran named Lucas Herrera, noticed an opening in the earth near a collapsed ridge, an artificial tunnel that shouldn't have existed in that part of the wilderness. Curious, he stepped inside. His flashlight beam hit metal, yellow, bent, buried in ash and dirt. It took him several moments to understand what he was seeing. A bus. A Texas Tech University shuttle bus, number 44, missing since March 2001. Lucas staggered back as his radio crackled. "You're not going to believe this," he whispered. Within hours, the tunnel was crawling with investigators and forensic units. The bus was angled sideways, wedged deep underground, as if it had been deliberately pulled inside. The exterior was rusted beyond recognition, the windows shattered, the roof caved in. Inside, time was frozen in a way that chilled every soul who stepped through the twisted door. Textbooks lay half-buried in dust, pages curled from moisture. A burnt Texas Tech hoodie hung from a seat. A backpack filled with cracked gel pens and a melted graphing calculator sat open on the floor. On the back seat, beneath collapsed metal, lay bones, human bones. 13 sets. Only 13. 14 still missing. And there was something else on the driver's seat. A stack of photographs sealed inside a plastic academic folder, perfectly preserved despite the fire. They were hand-drawn illustrations, ink and charcoal, signed by a student named Marissa Vale, one of the missing. Each sketch was unsettling. Students standing in a circle, holding lanterns, staring at something unseen. A strange spiral symbol repeating across multiple pages. A landscape view of Palo Duro Canyon, but distorted, almost alive. The last drawing was the most disturbing. The inside of a bus, this bus, surrounded by tall, faceless silhouettes, with a dark figure behind the wheel, wearing a crude mask made of torn fabric. The moment investigators saw that last sketch, they felt the same cold instinct. This wasn't the result of a crash. Someone placed that bus here. Someone tried to bury it, along with the truth. And the deeper they dug, the stranger the story became. Texas Tech University in the spring of 2001 was buzzing with excitement. Students crowded the SUB for lunch, the sound of laughter spilling across campus. The masked rider galloped across the Jones AT&T Stadium during spring exhibitions. Professors rushed through the breezeways with stacks of papers. Final season was approaching, but for a group known as the Red Riders Initiative Scholars, a competitive academic cohort, it was a moment of triumph. They had been selected for a special 3-day research retreat in the Palo Duro region, meant to encourage leadership, collaboration, and experiential learning. The students chosen came from all majors: engineering, fine arts, agriculture, psychology, sports science, geology. 27 in total. They weren't best friends, but they were bonded by ambition. Among them was Elena Torres, an electrical engineering student known for her quiet brilliance. She walked the campus with headphones on, always scribbling circuits in her notebook. Professor Sloan, her advisor, once described her as a light trying very hard not to be seen. There was David Mercer, a film student with a handheld Sony camcorder practically glued to his palm. He planned to record the entire retreat. "This is going to be my short film, Texas Tech Unplugged," he joked to his roommates. Then there was Ben Harlow, a star pitcher for the TTU baseball team. Coaches expected him to go pro. His smile was the kind that sold game tickets, but those close to him knew he carried loneliness like a second skin. And finally there was Marissa Vale, the artist whose sketches would later be found on the bus. Marissa was different, not in a strange way, but in a quiet, haunting way. She drew landscapes that looked like dreams. She spoke rarely, but when she did, people listened. Once she told her roommate, "I've been drawing the same place for months, and I don't know why. I've never been there, but I think I will soon."
On March 19, 2001, the students boarded Texas Tech shuttle bus number 44 outside the administration building. The driver that day was not the usual shuttle operator. He was a substitute, a man named Daniel Hurst. According to university records, he had been hired only 4 days earlier. His employment file contained nothing suspicious, but after that day, he would vanish along with the students. Parents waved from the parking lot. Some recorded shaky camcorder footage, laughter, backpacks, inside jokes, and then silence. That evening, the group failed to check in to the retreat lodge. At first, coordinators assumed a delay. The canyon roads were narrow and the weather unpredictable. But by 10 p.m., when the bus still hadn't arrived, calls were made. No answer. By the next morning, panic had taken over. Search and rescue teams swarmed the region. Helicopters circled the canyons. Volunteers scoured dirt roads. But the investigations found nothing. No skid marks, no broken tree limbs, no debris. It was as if the bus had simply dissolved. The case dragged on for months. Rumors spun across campus. Some said the students ran away to start new lives. Others believed the bus plunged into a hidden ravine. Some whispered about rituals, cults, or strange sightings in the canyons. But none of it mattered. No bodies, no bus, no answers. The case eventually went cold. Texas Tech erected a memorial stone outside Memorial Circle, etched with 27 names. Professors held annual vigils. Parents held on to fading hope. Time moved on, but the wound never healed. And then, 20 years later, the wildfire revealed the impossible. As investigators sifted through the bus remains, they found more than bones. They found notebooks, journals, scraps of writing, frozen in time. Elena's engineering notes stopped mid-sentence. Ben's baseball practice schedule was still folded in his wallet. David's camcorder was found under a seat, cracked, melted, but the tape inside survived. When the tape was restored, the footage revealed the last 18 minutes recorded inside the bus, but it wasn't what investigators expected. The footage began calm, students laughing, desert roads stretching endlessly. Some played cards, some slept. But then the mood shifted. The footage jerked. David whispered, "I think we're off the main road." Through the window, the landscape changed from flat plains to steep canyon walls. The sunlight dimmed. Another clip showed the students arguing with the driver. "You're not going the right way," someone shouted. The driver didn't respond. He kept staring forward, hands stiff on the wheel. The footage cut. Then returned. The students were now silent, alert, watching the windows as the bus rolled deeper into a narrow ravine. The engine strained. The final frames were chaotic. Screams, the sound of the bus scraping metal, a long tunnel of darkness swallowing the vehicle, a flash of a figure standing in front of the bus, and then black. The footage stopped there. Investigators paused the tape, over and over, searching for clues. That figure, what was it? Human? Not human. But the image was too distorted to identify. DNA testing on the remains in the bus confirmed the identities of the 13 students. But the biggest shock came 3 days after the discovery, when a man walked into the Lubbock Police Department lobby, thin, trembling, sunburned, and barefoot. "My name is Daniel Hurst. I was the driver of the bus," he whispered. The officer who heard him nearly dropped his clipboard. Daniel Hurst hadn't aged normally. His eyes were sunken, his hair grey, his face gaunt. He looked like he'd spent decades in captivity. Doctors examined him and confirmed something unbelievable. Biologically, he appeared to be 75 years old. That's impossible, investigators argued. He was only 42 in 2001, but test after test showed the same results. His body had aged far beyond 20 years. When they questioned him, his voice shook with terror. "I didn't take them. I didn't plan it. They told me where to drive." "Who?" the detective asked. He looked at the ceiling as if expecting something to crawl out of it. "The ones in the canyon." He trembled violently. "They waited for us. They knew we were coming." Detectives urged him to explain, but every time they asked what happened after the bus entered the tunnel, Daniel refused to speak. "If I say it, they'll come back for me. They come back for anyone who remembers." 2 days later, Daniel was found dead in his hospital bed. Heart attack, no signs of foul play. But the security footage showed him sitting up at 3:11 a.m., looking at something in the corner of the room, whispering, "I won't tell. I won't tell." And then he collapsed. When investigators returned to the tunnel to search for evidence, they made another discovery, a hidden chamber connected to the drainage tunnel, sealed behind a wall of rock. Inside were 14 separate piles of belongings arranged in a circle. Clothing, shoes, notebooks, personal items belonging to the missing students, but no bodies, not a single bone. The chamber's walls were carved with the same spiral symbol from Marissa's drawings, and in the center of the circle lay a mask made from a Texas Tech hoodie, torn and reshaped into the exact mask Marissa had drawn. Forensic analysis could not determine the age of the chamber. The carvings appeared ancient, hundreds of years old, older than the university, older than the city. One anthropologist quietly remarked, "These symbols don't belong to any known tribe. This predates settlement." But the most chilling discovery came last. A fresh footprint. Human, barefoot, deep in the dust, size consistent with an adult male, estimated less than 48 hours old. Yet no one else had entered that chamber. No one. Investigators searched miles of terrain. Nothing. It was as if someone had walked into the chamber and vanished into thin air. In August 2021, Texas Tech held a massive memorial at Jones Stadium. Students, professors, and families filled the stands. 13 names were read aloud, the ones whose remains were found. 14 names remained unsolved. 14 mysteries. 14 shadows. Parents wept. Friends held candles. The masked rider galloped across the field in silence, and the university president promised that the search would never end. But for the investigators who saw the footage, who stood inside that chamber, who held Marissa's final drawings, they knew the truth was more complicated, more terrifying. Something took those students in 2001. Something waited in those canyons. Something called them. And whatever it wasn't finished. Today, hikers still report strange lights in the Cap Rock at night. Students claim they hear voices near the engineering quay after midnight, whispers saying, "Turn back, turn back." Some say they've seen a faceless figure wearing a red hoodie mask near the agriculture building. And every year, on March 19th, someone anonymously leaves 14 red candles at the memorial stone outside Memorial Circle. 14 flames flickering in the wind. 14 souls still missing. The case of the Texas Tech 27 remains one of the most disturbing unsolved mysteries in American history. Because the truth is simple. The bus didn't just disappear, it was taken. And some things buried in the Texas desert should never be found again.